But we want to bring in Democratic strategist Trip Yang to talk to us a little bit more about this. Trip, step right on over. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Right now. This news is still developing. It's coming into our newsroom. You're a Democratic strategist. What are your sources and what are you hearing, sir?
So what's happening right here is that Eric Adams' days as mayor are simply numbered. Whether he resigns as mayor or not, he simply has no pathway to re-election. Some of these polls show Eric Adams' disapproval numbers at minus 60%. That means he's very unpopular with Democrats, Republicans, and independents. So this might be an area where he just simply has a safe landing spot and has a little bit of dignity. However, Donald Trump is very, very unpopular in New York City, so I don't know if it'll help his legacy here.
Speaking of unpopularity, some are saying that Mayor Eric Adams himself is unpopular here in New York City.
He's very. Eric Adams might be more unpopular than Donald Trump in some circles.
That's what we're hearing. Now, what is it that's being floated? There's a lot of conversations about possibly an ambassadorship to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
What are you hearing?
It could be an ambassadorship. It could be a job with HUD, the Federal Housing Agency, for example.
Exactly.
But clearly, Eric Adams is feeling out some of these overtures for a future for himself in 2026 because he knows that he's not going to be the next mayor of New York.
The White House's interest in this race is because the president has been very vocal of his non-support, of the front runner, Zohran Mamdani. And he actually made comments in regards to his thoughts on the race. And we're going to take a listen and then talk about what he had to say.
Become mayor, I will tell you that. I don't like to see a communist become mayor, I will tell you that. I would like to see two people drop out and have it be one-on-one, and I think that's a race that could be won.
That there's no amount of money.
So the president saying he'd like to see two people drop out, race going one-on-one. And so you tell me your thoughts on that as you hear the president saying
It is very unusual for a sitting president in the United States to be this intervening in a New York City mayor's race. It's almost unheard of. Look, Donald Trump, he may have moved to Florida, but he's clearly a New Yorker at heart. He cares, from his perspective, about the city. He clearly wants someone other than Mamdani. However, I believe Mamdani will win handily the November general election.
Our political reporter, Morgan McKay, just handed us this right here. Morgan, you can step right over. Thank you so much, dear. Your mic will probably pick up. My mic will pick yours up. You step into the conversation and you just share you have a statement from Adams.
Yeah, so Mayor Adams is saying, serving New Yorkers. He's saying that he's going to be staying in the race, but he's also saying he's going to be listening if he is called to serve our country. He said, quote, "Serving New Yorkers as their mayor is the only job I've ever wanted. I'm proud of the progress we've made, lowering crime, improving schools, building housing, and cutting costs for working families, and I remain the best person to lead the city forward. While I will always listen if called to serve our country, no formal offers have been made. I'm still running for re-election, and my full focus is on the safety and quality of life of every New Yorker."
Ms. McKay, I know you have to get ready for the noon. You trust me with this? I get it right back to you.
Okay,
Thank you so
perfect.
much. We just
Thank
got
you.
this statement in from Morgan McKay, political reporter. How do you break this down, particularly this last part about serving New Yorkers remains the focus?
He also, the mayor said, he'd be open to serving nationally, right? So we assume that's in the Trump administration, in a federal agency, an ambassadorship. What this really means is that Eric Adams, who's famously coy with the New York media, is that he is actually leaving the door open for another opportunity in the Trump administration. So that's how I read it, because his previous public statements have been very, let's say, committed to just simply serving New York.
Right.
This deviates from that a little bit.
So let's listen to what Governor Hochul had to say in regards to this and then talk about the two sides, meaning what her comments were and then what the president says. We're going to break that down a little bit some more. So just take a listen to what the governor had to say.
To what the president thinks. He's not a king. He's not a kingmaker. And he should be not anointing the next mayor of New York City. That is the right of New Yorkers to determine. And no one should be accepting that assistance. It should be rejected. Otherwise, there'll be a sense that people are compromised if they're getting the road cleared because of who the president wants as the next mayor that he believes he would be able to control.
Okay, so that's the governor saying that the president should have no business, if you will, in that. Your response to what the governor had to say?
Look, Governor Hochul is providing a fantastic foil from a Democratic perspective to Mayor Eric Adams, because while Mayor Eric Adams is, having this very friendly alliance with Donald Trump, this flirtation with Donald Trump's administration. Governor Hochul was standing up to Donald Trump, plays very, very well with New Yorkers because voters across the state largely dislike Donald Trump. And this is another example of Governor Hochul standing up to Trump. She has done it this summer with the redistricting fight, really leading the fight, encouraging New York State and other states to redistrict congressional districts so Democrats can have more of a fair fight against congressional Republicans. This is simply Governor Hochul once again standing up to President Trump.
Now, when we played the president's comments, he said he wanted at least two, figuring that the other one is Curtis Sliwa, perhaps, correct? Because the president has kind of suggested, without coming out directly saying, he'd rather see Andrew Cuomo, former Governor Andrew Cuomo, face off against the Democratic strategist. But Curtis Sliwa is also responding to reports of him possibly being the second person that the president would like to see withdraw. And we have a comment from Curtis Sliwa we want to play right now.
Absolutely no way, under no circumstance, you can't bribe me. You can't lease me, you can't rent me, you can't motivate me to lead this race. I am running as the Republican candidate.
Okay, so that was Sliwa. Your take on what he had to say just then?
It is very hard to find someone from New York more stubborn than Curtis Sliwa, for better or for worse.
Right.
Look, Curtis Sliwa does not have the same incentive as Eric Adams to drop out of the race. Curtis Sliwa is not a MAGA Trump Republican. He is, a figure in New York society and politics that most of us are aware of. He really has his own brand. Look, I don't think Curtis Sliwa has a shot here, but if the incentive is strong enough, maybe he does drop out of the race or does not actively campaign. It'll be harder to get Curtis Sliwa out of the mayor's race than Eric Adams, though.
Trip Yang, I want to ask you this, because all of the national landscape with what's going on in Texas, with the response from California, everyone's talking about rigging elections and trying to keep elections fair and safe. Are the comments that the president made from the Oval Office, do you believe, in your opinion, is that election interference in any way?
Well, I will say this. Voters generally have a lack of confidence in democracy because of the results of the last few years, because of Donald Trump and congressional Republicans, with all of their comments attacking different electoral systems and board of elections across the country. And so this does not help that at all. I will say, even more significantly, though, is that Donald Trump is very, very unpopular in New York. So even in the scenario where you get Cuomo versus Mamdani one-on-one with Adams and Sliwa dropping out, on paper, you may think that maybe Cuomo now has a viable pathway to being mayor. However, the stench of being associated with Donald Trump in New York City is not going to help Cuomo at all. I still think Mamdani remains the favorite.
A lot of people still find Cuomo problematic, given the baggage that he's carrying with him. Could, in a one-on-one, just your opinion, how do you think he would do?
He would be better, stronger in a one-on-one, again, as opposed to a four-way race right now. However, you nailed it. A lot of Democrats don't like Cuomo. A lot of Republicans and independents don't like Cuomo. He has had a lot of scandal from his time as governor and how he has failed to adequately address those scandals. So he still is damaged goods. His pathway gets a little bit brighter for him if Adams and Sliwa are out. However, Mamdani is the young, charismatic, very popular with the electorate. And crucially, most registered voters in New York City are registered Democrats. So the Democratic nominee, Mamdani, is going to have the advantage, even in this scenario.
All right, before we take a quick break, just your thoughts. Jim Walden, in this particular case, does he even have a horse in this race at this particular point? Just your thoughts.
Yeah, I've met Jim Walden on a number of occasions. He's a really nice person. He clearly has ideas. But look, I think, Jim Walden, maybe there is a future for him in public service. I don't know if he'll be much of a significant player electorally in November, though.
Trip Yang, thank you so much for being
Always
with
a pleasure.
us. You stick around for 1 second, everybody. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more developing news out of New York City. Stick with us. All right, welcome back, everybody, to a special edition of Newsroom Live. I'm Antoine Lewis, reporting to you from the newsroom of Fox 5 Studios here in New York City. We have major developing news that we're keeping our eyes on. If you are just watching and just joining us on our platforms, we want to go over a couple of the headlines right here as we're talking about news reports that the Mayor Eric Adams, might be withdrawing from the election, the general election this fall, which is less than 2 months away, and possibly being considered for a position within the Trump White House. And another headline we want to show you just how other outlets are covering this. The New York Post, we want to go there just to show you how they are doing it. That's Politico. Right there, you can see what they're doing. There's the Post right there, Steve Witkoff in the smaller caption off to the shoulder there, and there is the New York Times, their discussions and their coverage of that. I now want to bring in Michael Lang, another Democratic strategist here, just to talk about this and just your reaction to this, because we know that the mayor met with Trump officials, earlier this week. He's been coy, talking about that. But how do you process all of this, sir?
I think it's a sad day for New York City, and I think Eric Adams is set up to have a legacy alongside Jimmy Walker and William O'Dwyer as some of one of the more corrupt public officials in the city's history. And I think it's frankly very sad to kind of see someone be manipulated so openly by the President of the United States, who is in many respects hostile to a lot of the interests of New York City.
Now, Michael, the mayor gave a statement a little while ago saying, serving New Yorkers as their mayor is the only job I've ever wanted. I'm proud of the progress we've made, lowering crime, improving schools, building houses, working families, cutting costs, and I remain the best person to lead the city forward. While I will always listen if called to serve our country, no formal offers have been made. That part.
Yeah.
How do you process that?
I process that as him saying, I need more to leave, up the offer, per se.
As
a negotiating tactic.
The
right?
floated
Right.
what is rumored but not confirmed is a possible position as an ambassador to Saudi Arabia. We saw
Right.
some headlines reporting. Then possibly we were hearing reports earlier this week of a position within the Department of Housing, with HUD. So
It seems as though not only does he want to be kind of taken care of by the Trump administration, he probably wants some of his cronies and the people who are also kind of tied to him in a very real way to be taken away. I mean, I see that statement as nothing more than a negotiating tactic. I don't think he has any interest in continuing in this race, and it's just kind of using the remaining leverage that he has to kind of get the best deal.
let's play a soundbite from the president as he was weighing in when asked about his thoughts on the upcoming mayoral election. We're going to listen to the president right now.
To see a communist become mayor, I will tell you that. I would like to see two people drop out and have it be one-on-one, and I think that's a race that could be won.
Now, the president was saying he'd like to see two people drop out, figuratively, Adams and Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa. Your thoughts on what the president had to say?
I mean, we've never seen something like this in the city's history, to kind of have a president meddling so openly in a race, in New York City mayor's race like this. I ultimately think, though, that in terms of at least narrowing the field, that Donald Trump will probably get what he wants. Eric Adams already seems to be kind of on his way out the door, and I think then that would give him and many of the billionaires who are also trying to narrow this race a lot of time to kind of force Curtis Sliwa out. I think because Curtis Sliwa is such an interesting and unique figure, I think sometimes people downplay the fact that he could also choose to leave, right?
Right.
Just because he's fought the mafia in the past, that doesn't necessarily mean he is immune to pressure from some of the most powerful people in the world. And then I do think then we basically have a rematch of the June primary, but with the November electorate. And I think I also agree with Trip Yang on earlier. I also agree with him that Mamdani would still be the favorite, but things getting weird, and then it would also kind of concurrently embolden some of these super PACs who early on looked like they were like, we're just going to save our money, we accept Mamdani's inevitability. Then they would kind of be faced with another chance to kind of pour $20, $50, $100 million into stopping.
Michael Lang, in your thoughts, is this in any way the White House trying to interfere with New York City politics in regards to the mayoral election.
Absolutely, but I also think it's important to recognize that talk of interference, democracy, things like that, while true and important, I'm not sure if those will be the defining issues of the race in November. So I think it's also for someone like Zohran Mamdani, clearly state, what is going on here with Donald Trump, show people that he is interfering, but you also can't let this completely displace the message that helped you win the election to begin with.
So let's talk a little bit about this. In a situation where, let's say, should Zohran Mamdani prevail in the fall, what's the relationship, as you see it, going to be between the White House and New York City? Just your opinion here.
Yeah, deep breath. I imagine that relationship to be rather fraught, but I would hope that there would be at least a couple avenues of collaboration in the best interest of New Yorkers, but it would certainly be getting off on a very tumultuous and polarizing note.
Think?
Yeah, starting from the very beginning, and I think that would kind of bode ominously for what the Trump-Mamdani relationship would be going forward.
Has Andrew Cuomo and the legacy of the Cuomo name, given the baggage that he is perceived to be carrying, on this ticket, is that enough to win back the favor of New York City voters, in your opinion?
I would say I would lean no as of now. Ironically, I think a different type of one versus one independent candidate could give someone like Zohran Mamdani a couple problems, but I think Cuomo is uniquely polarizing, and I think he just hasn't shown to be very in step with the electorate, which is increasingly young. Mm-hmm. And so I think I think he's a candidate with many flaws, and I think that will catch up with him.
Michael, the statement that we just received from the mayor's office from City Hall in regards to Mayor Adams stating that he is going to stay in his position, that he's not resigning. Again, you're of the opinion that this is just trying to say, if you want me out, you have to do a little bit more than this?
Yeah. It just using using the leverage that he still has. His leverage is just that he's in the race. Mm-hmm. Once he's out, and once he's termed out of office, right, the leverage is gone. This is him kind of using what last bit of leverage he has to get the best deal. The art of the deal, you could say.
So let me ask you this then, with regards to that. If the possibility is that perhaps he's trying to get positions for some others, perhaps, if that's the thinking process, who's left? Because most of them have either resigned, a lot of them, of some that are still being investigated, for other crimes. Who would possibly be? Is there anyone that you know?
Frank Carone, could be Ingrid Lewis-Martin.
Ingrid Lewis-Martin has her own situation going on now in court.
Exactly, right. It could be, I'm sure there are charges that have not been brought forth that could still be outstanding that they might also have in mind to protect themselves from.
Could a seasoned politician like Eric Adams presents himself to be, who has associated himself with people that have either been indicted or resigned because they were investigated or looked into, whether it's the school's chancellor, last year, who stepped down, like that, a number of those who were with him when he was elected in 2021 are no longer there. Yeah. Could a seasoned politician like that, would they revisit the same thinking or processes, that got them perhaps into trouble and under more scrutiny the first time around?
I think certainly, I think the mayor has shown that kind of bad judgment is the one consistent piece, because Eric Adams had some very significant brushes with large-scale corruption even before he became the mayor.
Right.
So I think regrettably this is kind of the one pattern that we've seen with his career in elected office that seems to be coming to a close as we speak.
Michael Lang, thank you so much for being with
Pleasure
us
to be
today
here.
on
Thank you for
Newsroom
having me.
Live. And everyone, we're going to take a quick break and we'll continue our coverage on all things happening in New York City. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to this special edition of Newsroom Live. Antoine Lewis with you this morning as we are following developing news in the race for New York City mayor. Reports, we're trying to confirm reports on that information that Mayor Eric Adams may be dropping out of the race. Now, he has since issued a statement saying that that is not the case. I'll share a little bit of that with you right now. Serving New Yorkers as their mayor is the only job I've ever wanted. While I will always listen if called to serve our country, no formal offers have been made. It is that part that is making the headlines in the discussion, because there are reports, and we'll show you some newspaper headlines, that the Trump administration has offered the mayor an ambassadorship, possibly to Saudi Arabia. That's the Politico right there. There's the New York Post right there, and that's Steve Witkoff in the small box there that was over the mayor's shoulder. And again, this is the New York Times right there. So this has been developing here in New York. The mayor, literally within the last 20 minutes or so, issuing a statement saying that. Now, why this is a big deal is because the president has made comments that he would like to see two of the candidates running for mayor step out, which would then basically set up a head-to-head match between former Governor Andrew Cuomo and the Democratic frontrunner Zohran Mamdani. Now, the president making those comments just yesterday, we wanted to play them for you, and we'll talk about it.
Has become mayor, I will tell you that. I would like to see two people drop out and have it be one-on-one, and I think that's a race that could be won.
That there is no amount of money.
And we also have a reaction from Governor Kathy Hochul, who had a response to what the president said. So we want to play that for you now also.
Contrary to what the president thinks, he's not a king. He's not a kingmaker. And he should be not anointing the next mayor of New York City. That is the right of New Yorkers to determine. And no one should be accepting that assistance. It should be rejected. Otherwise, there'll be a sense that people are compromised if they're getting the road cleared.
So that was the governor's response. We want to hear from you, and I apologize I'm late asking you to leave comments in this section, but we had a lot going on that we wanted to bring you the very latest information on it. So at any point, we definitely want to direct you to leave a comment in the section on the platform that you are watching us on. Here's why this is a big deal. All eyes are on this election because of the perceived friction, if you will. The president has not been shy about stating that he's not a fan, if you will. He's, of Zohran Mamdani. And of course, the relationship between he and Eric Adams has been under a lot of scrutiny, especially for the bulk of this year, going back to allegations that there was situations developing between the president and City Hall here. And Mayor Adams, again, issuing a statement saying that reports, news, that he is withdrawing. He's saying right now that he is staying in. He's proud of the progress that he's made, lowering crime, improving schools, building housing, and cutting costs for working families. And that, again, this is his statement, he remains the best person to lead this city forward. Now, you heard the president say a few minutes ago in those comments that he'd like to see two people drop out. So if one is perceived to be Adams, then the second is perceived to be Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa. Curtis Sliwa is a fixture in the New York landscape. And he had a response to this development when he was asked, his thoughts about if he was the number two in all of this. And we want to play that for you now.
Absolutely no way, under no circumstance. You can't bribe me. You can't lease me. You can't rent me. You can't motivate me to lead this race. I am running as the Republican candidate.
And there you have it there. Again, we want your comments there, what you're thinking about all of this. We had strategists that were just on sharing their views, and it's no fact that Eric Adams, the incumbent, is not quite popular at this moment. And if the president, who also remains unpopular with New York City voters, just as the stats show, the polls show, if the reports are true and that the president would rather see a face-off between Zohran Mamdani and Andrew Cuomo, Cuomo himself brings a lot of baggage, given what happened to him and how he was forced to resign. And if the president thinks that this is the best matchup, then this is why all of this is developing. And that then leads itself to the comments that Governor Hochul made when she was talking about how it seems to infringe upon the voter process. And we just want to check to see if we have anybody weighing in. Adeja, my producer's off to my right. Want to make sure we get your thoughts in if we have the opportunity to.
Someone says they do think that Eric Adams will drop out of the race and become an ambassador to Arabs.
Okay, so at least one person is weighing in, thinking that the current mayor, the incumbent Eric Adams, will drop out of the race and then accept a position, be it an ambassadorship or with the Department of Housing, which is the other thing we were hearing, that he was possibly being looked at or considered for a position within HUD. So we thank you for that comment. Anyone else with a comment? We want to make sure that we get that in also.
Says, love Curtis Lewa.
Love Curtis Lewa. Okay, Curtis Lewa getting support from our viewers and streamers there. We are nearing our time together, so we want to thank you for the comments. We want to thank you for joining us for this special broadcast. We want to invite you to stay right here on this platform because our midday newscast begins right after we say goodbye, and we will continue this discussion on this topic as well as everything else that is happening in the city, in the state, in our country, in our world. And again, these are the developments right now, 2 months rather, from our election on November 4th that we have for you. We can tell you a little bit just before we go, in case you're wondering about some weather. We're expecting some showers tomorrow. We'll let you know about that. They're not supposed to be any sort of major deluge, but there you want to have your umbrellas tomorrow. We're about the end of our time, everybody. I'm Antoine Lewis from Fox 5 New York. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. Stay safe.